Hello everyone, Utkarsh Agarwal this side. Welcome to the fourth episode of Audit on the Go, Chalte Phirte Audit. So today I just thought of being a bit candid as the name of my series is Audit on the Go, Chalte Phirte Audit. So just thought of creating this audit content in the gym where my mother is doing the gym and I'm just sitting idle today on Sundays. So just thought of creating the content. So today we are going to discuss on the change management domain of ITGC. So just to repeat, there are 4 domains of ITGCs as we already know and we have discussed as well in our prior episodes. So there are 4 domains. One is access to programs and data domain, where there are further classification on the logical access and physical access. Then we have change management, and then we have SDLC, system development lifecycle, and the fourth one is on computer operations. So today we are going to understand the change management. So first of all, we would understand that how this change management process actually happens, and then how an auditor plays role in doing testing of this change management controls, and would like to be a bit candid over here just to give a real life example as well on how we can correlate a change management control to a real life situation as well. So let us understand first of all that what is change management. So generally as an IT auditor, when we are auditing the applications, when we are auditing the 4 domains of ITGCs on any in-scope applications. So for example, PeopleSoft application. So during the business, during the entire year, there can be lot of changes that might be required by the business in the application. So suppose when a change is required, so here we are taking example of PeopleSoft application. So if a change is required, what the business will do, what the business user will do is generally raise a snow ticket. Snow ticket is ServiceNow ticket, it can be a Jira ticket, it can be any other form of ticket which is used by the organization for logging changes. So here we are taking example of snow ticket because it is kind of very prevalent, and ServiceNow ticketing tool is generally used by many of the organizations. So just sticking to one example, but it doesn't mean that there will be only one kind of ticketing tool. There can be a lot of ticketing tool as we discussed now. So what a business user will do is a business user will raise a ServiceNow ticket. Now in that snow ticket, what will happen is like the business justification, the business requirement will be mentioned, that what is the changes required for. Based on that, there are 3 environments in a change management process. One is development environment, the second one is test environment, and the third one is production environment. So once a change request is received, a task is created and the development team starts working on that change and starts developing that change. That happens in a development stage. Now the second stage is the test environment or the test stage. So what happens in this? So once the change is developed, now the business user or the business team who has kind of raised the request are invited to to test the change which has been developed and to give their recommendations that whether any further modifications required or not, or whether any changes are required or not. So based on that, once the UAT approval is taken, once the UAT approval sign off is taken, that is user acceptance testing sign off, the change is moved to the approval, is moved for the approval of CAB, that is change approval board. So what we have learned is, first is the development environment where the change is developed. After the change is developed, the business user or the business team is invited to do the testing over the change that has been developed and to give their approvals. So that is UAT testing, that is UAT environment, user acceptance testing. And before going live, generally there is a CAB approval, that is change approval, board approval. And who form part of these CAB? So generally it consists of the IT members, it consists of the finance members, it consists of the business teams, right? Like the senior managers, directors and above, from the IT team, from the business team, who finally gives a go ahead. And after the CAB approval, the change is migrated to production environment. So this is all about the change management process. Definitely as auditors we have to understand the different kinds of changes that takes in, like normal changes, standard changes, emergency changes. So there can be different types of changes that can be involved. So as auditors we have to understand that under normal change, like where the change nature is of normal, which is not an emergency change as the name suggests. So in that case, what kind of approvals are required, UAT testing is required or not, CAB approvals are required or not, who all are required to give the approvals, what is the timeline of change to be moved to production. So these kind of things. And the same goes for the standard change. Sometimes one can understand that in a standard change, as the name suggests, it is a very basic and standard one. So most of the times UAT testings are not required in that. So it again depends upon organization to organization and the process that has been built. So as an auditor, we have to understand on those lines. Now, emergency change. As the name suggests, it is in emergency, which cannot follow the normal procedure. So generally what we find as auditors is that generally the change does not go through UAT process. At times it doesn't go through CAB approval process as well. After development, it is kind of moved to production, and after moving to production, like within 24 hours or 48 hours, UAT is required to be done and CAB approval is to be obtained. So all these activities are done just to ensure that the emergency, in order to cater the emergency, the changes are moved to production. However, appropriate approvals are taken later on. So this is how we cover on the change management process as well on the emergency side. So as you can see in the gym, a lot of people are coming right now, and no worries, we can continue until and unless there is a hindrance in terms of if they are playing music or something like that. So now let's take a very easy example to understand the change management process. So for example, like whenever a change, like what is the basic difference between a change management process and a SDLC process, that is system development lifecycle process. So the basic difference between the two is that when a change, when a modification is done in the existing application, for example PeopleSoft application which we were taking for this episode as an example application, any change to the existing application will come under change management process. But if a change requires a change in the application altogether, like inclusion of a new application altogether, development of a new application altogether, purchase of a new application altogether, then generally SDLC process gets triggered. So SDLC process is nothing but the bigger part of the change management process. All the process which is followed in change management is followed in SDLC as well, but the quantum and the timing involved is humongous in SDLC. So we can cover it in the next episodes, but overall one can understand that if one can understand change management process, SDLC is just the bigger brother of change management process. So just to give a real life example, suppose in our existing home, when we do any kind of renovations, then such renovation doesn't lead to change of flat, right? Doesn't lead to change of home. that is change management process, that where you are living, you are just doing a renovation to enhance the capabilities of that flat, in order to enhance the lighting, the appearance of the flat. So that is change management. But if suppose you are going to purchase a new house in a new construction that is going on, so that construction will take time, a new flat will be prepared altogether, and it involves a lot of process. So that is nothing else but SDLC. And by this example, one can understand renovating a existing flat will cost very less as compared to purchasing of a new constructed flat where a new construction is taking place. So even the cost involvement in the change management process is much lesser than the cost involved in the SDLC process. So now the last leg of this video is like, as an auditor, how we are going to test the change management process. So first of all, as an auditor, we have to be very diligent in understanding the population of change management, that what is the population, because it is a very common saying that if the population goes wrong, or if we don't have comfort as auditors on the population, if the population goes wrong, our sampling will go wrong, and if our sampling will go wrong, our testing and the test approach will go wrong, and if our test is incomplete or insufficient, then our opinion will go wrong. So the population serves the basis of any control testing. So even in change management process, first of all, we have to understand the population of the change management. So in our example, as we told that ServiceNow listing is being used, but there is a basic difference. We have to first of all understand, like for example, PeopleSoft application. We have to understand from management that any system listing of changes are available or not. Any system listing of changes is available or not means like a direct listing of changes from the application can be extracted or not. Because many a times there can be situation that there are direct changes from the vendors, there are certain changes which might not follow change management process or might not follow ticketing process. Then in that case, those changes are also covered in the system listing. However, many a times as auditors, we get into a situation where there is a system limitation and we don't get the system listing. In that case, there are certain criteria as our audit guide. We have to follow those, we have to document it in our EGA that how we are comfortable in not using the system listing and there are limitations to it, and how we are comfortable in kind of agreeing to the ServiceNow listing or the Jira ticketing tool or any kind of ticketing tool listing, how we are comfortable with that. Now once we document that rationale, what we have to do is, so suppose here in our example, system listing is not available from PeopleSoft. So, but here the management uses snow listing or the snow ticketing tool, ServiceNow ticketing tool to lodge all the changes. So what we will do is, for our audit period, we will obtain, for example, if it is from 1st of January till 31st of December, we will obtain the entire change listing from the ServiceNow tool from 1st of January till 31st of December, all the closed changes which have been moved to production environment. Okay. And now based on our sampling guidance, we can select certain samples, and for all those samples, what we will obtain is the respective change ticket, then UAT approval documents, which can be emails, which can be an attachment to the ServiceNow ticket, then CAB approvals. We will check whether the CAB approvals are appropriate or not, and after the UAT approval has been obtained, then only after that CAB approval should be obtained, and after CAB approval obtained, the change has been moved to production. So, and the ticket is closed. So as an auditor, we have to be very diligent in understanding the type of changes and the requirement for each of them, as we discussed earlier in this video as well. That is, for a normal change, for a standard change, for an emergency change, what is the procedure, whether UAT is applicable or not, whether CAB approval is applicable or not, who can provide CAB approvals, and what is the timelines for closing a normal change ticket, for a standard change ticket, for an emergency change ticket. What are the classifications, how the management has classified, like there can be different types of changes which the management classifies to be a normal change, which classifies to be a standard change, what kind of changes generally the management considers to be an emergency change. So all these kind of understanding we should have in order to do a proper change management testing. So I hope all these this entire session probably helped you all a lot to understand the entire change management process from the management's perspective, from the business perspective, and even from the auditor's perspective, that how we are going to obtain the population, what kind of determination of facts which is required in order to kind of get comfort over the population, and how we can do sampling over it, and after samples are selected, what kind of documents that we should gather in order to complete a change management testing. So thank you everyone for your time. Have a good day.